Body Bags with Joseph Scott Morgan. The worst pain in the world, still to this day, that I can ever remember from my childhood were chronic earaches. And if you were a kid in the 60s, they had a procedure that they would do, and they don't do it any longer, thank the Lord, called the lancing of the ears. And I would be in such excruciating pain that I would be taken to the doctor, and this was common practice. Many of you guys probably remember this. And you would go to the doctor, and they would lance your ears with a little probe to relieve the pressure. And this fluid would come out of your ears. I would be in such pain that the only way I could be soothed was warm eardrops and my mother rocking me in a rocking chair while singing Down in the Valley. I actually sang that song to my kids when they were little because I found such peace in it. But y'all, I got to tell you something. I'm going to talk to you today about some information we've come into involving a case and eardrums that no matter how many verses or how many times we might sing Down in the Valley, there's no comfort in it. We're going to revisit the case of Anna Kepner. I'm Joseph Scott Morgan, and this is Body Bags. I'm back here with Brother Dave. We recently returned from a foray out west, CrimCon, Las Vegas. And I got to tell you, brother, I am happy to be home. Very much happy. But with that said, we returned to this news that I did not see coming. I didn't expect to have this kind of, what do we call it? A data dump, I think, or an information dump.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were surprised by it, but I certainly was that you had this kind of data that came out.
Well, at CrimCon in Las Vegas, we talked about everything with so many people. And by the way, a quick thank you to everyone who came by.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Joe and I had the chance to meet some just spectacular folks. Did. And I got to say, one thing I did, Joe, you're going to laugh, okay?
Yeah.
The wonderful lady who made the quilts for us.
Yeah.
And included stuff about fishing on the quilt.
Yeah.
I actually left clothes in my room so I could bring the quilt home. I didn't have any space.
Yeah, I know.
I thought, you know what? I'll give up that jacket, that shirt, and anything else. But I loaded the quilt in my suitcase first before I left. So
yeah, Kimmy and I rode with it. We had our own quilt, and we're referring to a friend. I don't have permission to say her name, but I'll just tell you she's a hospice nurse. She listens to Brother Dave and I, and she's actually a Jack State alumni. And she made quilts for Dave and I both, and what an angel she is. Kimmy and I, interestingly enough, on our flight back, we shared the blanket. On the way back, we had it across our laps. We were so exhausted, we went to sleep with this blanket across our laps. So that's a good sign. It brought us a lot of comfort. And God bless her for doing. Hey, look, she's a hospice nurse.
Oh, yeah.
God bless our hospice nurses out there. Oh, my Lord.
Yeah.
The stuff that they see, the comfort that they give is just, you can't express it deeply enough. And you know, the thing about it, Dave, over the course of my career, I saw the end.
Yeah.
I saw the end. Okay, and just let me run with this just for a second. I saw the end result. They saw the time leading up to the end. And it's as ugly as death can be, that time leading up that they have to bear witness to, it requires a special person to work in that world. So God bless them. And to our friends, thank you a million times over for these fabulous gifts.
Sweet. It was unbelievable. All right.
Yeah.
But we get back, Anna Kepner is in the news. The Anna Kepner news is a second DNA profile that the FBI, in their investigation, they have found another teenager on the same cruise, and they wanted to get a DNA sample, Joe.
Yeah.
That tells us a lot in a very brief sentence there.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk a little bit about what took place in court as different things were being discussed by the defense and how they're angling the argument already. Because you were talking about the earaches and the eardrums are going to come into this case in such a big way. I was shocked. I remember when I first read that, reaching out to you and say, her eardrums were burst?
Yeah.
How does that even happen? And thankfully, Joe, you'll be able to explain that. So here's what we got coming up. Brand new news that there was another teenager involved with Anna on the cruise trip. And I will tell you this, it's amazing, Joe, when you watch the defense try to finagle their way around things. And even at the preliminary stages, trying to mix up things. And I'm going, dude, here's what we do know, okay? We know that Anna and her stepbrother entered their room that they were sharing about the same time on the last night she was seen alive. And the stepbrother left the room several times after that. It's on video. They got surveillance on all these things, right?
Yep.
But Anna never left the room again until her body was carried out in a body bag. She died in that room, having never left. So we watch her go in, never leaves. Her stepbrother, meanwhile, goes in and out of the room multiple times. So defense is going to have to get around that one if they're going to try to say he didn't kill her. Just saying. So, Joe, let's go back to the eardrums for a minute. Tell us why you were explaining the eardrum situation and lancing the ears.
Yeah, I found this was a fascinating diagnosis that led up to this, and let me tell you why. This kind of auditory internal auditory dissection that they would have had to have done, Dave, this is not common. Now, we will open up the inner ear many times in cases of suspected drowning, okay, because that's valuable data, that we collect. We find water in the inner ear. That's one of the things that we look for in case of drowning. And maybe this is standard with Miami-Dade, which, by the way, is a fantastic medical legal facility. It's one of those facilities, or it used to be. I've been down there in a long time. And Dr. Joe Davis, I knew him very well. I had met him. He's one of the Dr. Davis that founded that organization, or not really founded it, but really established it. He would be again on our Mount Rushmore in forensics.
Okay.
In the medical legal world. Beautiful facility to see. It's got that kind of Art Deco, Miami kind of feel to it. They've always done well. They've done a lot of training there nationally. Just fantastic place. Maybe it's standard operating procedure for them to open the inner ear on every one of these cases, but I have to think that there was some kind of sign that they saw in Anna, or on Anna. I would say, to begin with, on Anna, when they began to do her examination. Let me kind of throw this out to you.
Yeah.
I suspect that and I might be proved wrong. However, I suspect that the congestion in her head, like when you're observing her body, would have been so intense and so striking that they probably decided to do a full-on examination of every element within her skull. And let me tell you what the color, if you, the next time y'all go to the grocery store, all right, do yourself a favor. When you go to the vegetable area, look at the color of an eggplant. Okay. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh.
It's going to be that striking, to me at least. I think that's probably what they saw. And you get different...
Wait a minute, so they saw that in her ear. They get her on the table.
No. I'm just saying externally they saw this. Yeah, from probably the neck, lower neck upwards, more than likely. Okay. Now, we will see people that are, for instance, people that have congestive heart failure, or if they're in congestive heart failure, generally from the nipple line up like this, you'll get this purple color, highly congested. But as you can imagine, the longer pressure exists, okay,
Mhm.
the more pressure that is applied and the intensity of the pressure is going to dictate these color changes. And a lot of it has to go to the individual structural anatomy of of each one of us, okay, depending upon, how we're kind of set up and these sorts of things. So when they saw her, I'm thinking that they would have noted that her face was so purple, so congested, her eyes the whites of her eyes
Mhm.
would have been highly congested. I would even go so far as to say you could pick up on the lips. Probably the lips will turn purple. So when they got in, I would imagine, and did the initial um evisceration of the brain, uh, first off, her brain is going to be probably a little bit heavier than normal.
Why
For
would that be?
someone her age, it would probably, on average, I'd say maybe 1,100 grams. And when it would feel weightier. And not to mention the surface of the brain, the little curved spiral areas,
Yeah.
those are called sulci and gyri.
Called
And so
what?
when you look at that sulci and gyri,
Okay.
um, and the first time I ever saw them, they kind of reminded me of weird looking pasta. I'll
Okay.
never forget, seeing that,
I was just
the
thinking of
first for
future
the very
names for
first time.
twins, you know?
Yeah, I
That's
know
all.
sulci and gyri. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. It kind of seems that way. But the brain itself is going to be very, very congested
Mm.
just on the first view of the brain before you ever dissect it.
Okay,
Okay.
what's that gonna tell you, though? You say congested. Does that
Mm-hmm.
mean it's carrying more fluid? It's holding fluid?
Carrying more blood. Yeah.
Okay.
And what that means is, I just, Dave, on body bags, we like to talk about things in terms that we don't like to talk down to folks, do we?
No,
That's
I
not our gig. And
I have
so,
to understand what you're saying, man.
yeah, no, I understand completely what you're saying. And I'm glad you kind of checked me there, because I want people to understand in simple terms. We know what it's like to have a backed up drain, right,
Right.
in the house. And this is kind of an oversimplification, but if you think about a drainage system in a house, it doesn't, it's similar to a vascular system, right? And so, you've got various vessels that are carrying things all over the place. And if something gets backed up, then the water can't go anywhere, right?
Okay.
And you think about a backed up drain, a backed up toilet, a backed up dishwasher. Lord knows I've had those. It settles in there, doesn't it? And you'll see the water there, and it has to be unblocked. Well, in death, at that moment in time, that area is going to seize up and it's not going to circulate back out. Okay. So that congested area shall remain congested. Now, if there are people out there that are like, if you have somebody that's like in congestive failure,
Mhm.
okay, and medical teams can stem that. Now, they're not, after they're back to their full health, right? They're
Mhm.
not going to have that appearance to them, that kind of dusky appearance to them in life once it's cleared up. Do you understand? It's not. It's
Yep,
going to
gotcha.
resolve. The dead do not resolve on
Okay.
any level whatsoever, and so that's a real issue in this particular case. It's not an issue for the team that's doing the examination. It's an issue for the accused. Dave, there's there's an area within our brain that's referred to as the circle of Willis. And this anatomical structure, it's a vascular pathway. And for those of y'all out there that might live around big cities, okay, let's continue with the theme of vessel, because you've been in radio for a long time, Dave. There are the guys that do the traffic reporting. They
Mhm.
used to use the term vessel
Right.
many times for roadways, right?
Yeah.
And there's a reason. If you think about Atlanta, or a big city that has a perimeter that
Right.
goes around it, okay, anybody out there that's ever lived through the hell that is I-285 in Atlanta
Right.
can identify with this. And so you have all of these road vessels that extend off of 285. Well, the Circle of Willis is actually, it's a designator for the blood supply for the brain. And you've got various vessels that come off of it and supply different areas. And of course, it's all rooted down here in the carotids. And that's very important for us to understand. And the carotids are bilateral. Okay. So you got one on each side and it goes up. All right. And then it eventually makes its way and it branches up into, creates the Circle of Willis. And there's these little vessels that run off of it. And so we have to understand that to begin with, to try to dig into this idea of burst eardrums, Dave.
Well, okay, we have the story of Anna Kepner centers around, a high school senior going on a family cruise, and this cheerleader who plans on graduating and going into the military, very loving, active, beautiful. I mean, all the smart, everything you want in a young person. And she ends up dying on that cruise ship at what appears to be, allegedly, the hands of her stepbrother, a stepbrother who there had been warning signs. And the reason we're talking about this now, and sometimes we assume too much. We assume that maybe y'all are keeping up with the stories like we are. And we know that's not the case. We just forget sometimes. But to give you an idea here, there were warning signs that Anna Kepner and her stepbrother had been aggressive towards her in ways that made her uncomfortable. Why the family thought it was a good idea to put an 18-year-old and a 16-year-old with a 16-year-old stepbrother. By the way, this is not a family that has been involved for a decade. It's not like these children were 4 and 5 years old when the family, became blended. This is recent, okay? Yeah. And you just don't do this, friends. So 18-year-old, 16-year-old, and we now have, as I diagrammed earlier, we know the timeline that Anna, she begs off dinner, don't feel good. She heads to her room. Right behind her, about the same time, the stepbrother enters and they're seen on surveillance video going in the room. After that, she never leaves again. So Anna never leaves the room, and her body is found the next day around 11 o'clock, and they find that she has been murdered. And the reason we're talking about the eardrums is because the eardrums bursting came from, what do they call it? Mechanical asphyxiation, strangulation. Yeah. And I'm thinking, Joe, look, was it hands, armbar? Was it putting pressure on the back of her head against something hard, on her throat? What could possibly cause? I remember when this first came out, I sent you a text. Yeah. What the heck? How does this even happen?
I am so glad you brought this up, because this goes right to the heart of the matter. And listen, I've got to tell you something. When this thing first kicked off, I was very curious how they arrived at this conclusion of armbar. Because armbar, I'm familiar with it because I've worked cases for years and years, particularly involving police officers. Mm-hmm. Because, this is something that has been done traditionally in the past to restrain somebody. Right. Okay. And we went from armbar, okay, to chokehold. And they knew that armbar was bad. Well, why is it bad? Well, it's kind of logical. So if we've got something with a leading edge on it, okay, like what's referred to as the blade of your arm, right here, okay. Well, if you've got this hard surface, your forearm, and you're taking it and you're pressing it down like this, that's a mechanism. Okay. I was fascinated how they drew this conclusion, David. And, and the reason, this is why, this is how my crazy mind works. With every other case that I've been associated with that had to do with a restraint or something like that, and the word armbar, think about wrestling, or as we say down here in the South, wrestling. Right?
I was thinking about the Hulk Hogan documentary on Netflix right now.
Yeah, and you've told me to watch it, so
Yeah.
I'm going to. I follow your recommendation, so I'm going to check it out. But you know, we see demonstrations in mano contact, right? And
Okay.
so if you're thinking about an arm bar, that's something that generally has a witness to it.
What do you mean by a witness to it? I mean, there's proof somewhere in the pudding?
You know, because you can say manual strangulation, all
Mhm.
right? Manual,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
You can say ligature
Okay.
strangulation because, you know, we've got the furrows. You can actually see where people grab hold of people by the neck.
Mhm.
You'll see contused areas that are adjacent and soft tissues, those sorts of things. But, you know, dude, they're talking about an arm bar.
Right.
And okay, how do you delineate between an arm bar and I don't know, something else? Well, I think this is what has happened. I think. Don't know it for sure.
Mhm.
First off, I think there's significant damage in the organs of her neck. I'm talking about probably the cartilaginous bodies in here.
Okay.
Um, in her so-called, you know, windpipe. You know, we talk about the larynx
Yeah.
and these structures in here. It's been compressed, Dave. And you don't, and that kind of compression that takes place when you're putting the blade of the arm on here and
Mhm.
pressing down, it has to have kind of a weird linear uniformity to it.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing I'm thinking, and this when they saw this, I'm just wondering, did they think there's so much pressure here because of the color changes and then what we're seeing in the neck? Let's take a look at her inner ear, and doggone it, they didn't go in there. And they're the ones saying this. This is the eardrum, the tympanic membrane is actually the official $10 words for it. They're burst. So how do you arrive at that? Well, I believe that with an arm bar, which again, they're saying that
Right.
it ain't Joe Scott Morgan, it ain't Brother Dave, all right? They're saying that there had to have been so much pressure that would have built up. Remember, I talked about those vessels that
Yeah.
supply these areas, um, that the vessels would have burst within the membrane, okay, which would have been markedly painful. Now, I don't know if she would have had an awareness of it. I
Mhm.
hope she didn't, because keep in mind, it's not just the vessels that are dealing with this pressure. She's struggling for breath. The pain in her ears, that's the least of these. But what it does demonstrate, and this is very powerful, and it will, trust, it's going to be very powerful in court as
Right.
well. All right. Watch, mark my words today, write this date down. They're going to talk about pounds per PSI that it takes to do this compression. Now, I don't know how they're going to calculate that, but this always comes up in all of these cases like this, where you're talking about the amount of force that is required in order to create trauma like this. And they're going to ask that forensic pathologist from Dade County, Miami-Dade County, that did this autopsy. Hey, doc, you know, how many pounds per square inch of pressure did this require in order to facilitate, you know, these inner ear issues? Here's another thing, you know, and maybe this just goes to the nature of the office itself. You know, they deal in Miami with a lot of diving injuries.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
And so that's probably part of their protocol. For all I know, every single
Huh.
person that they do autopsies on down there, they go in and they do a very detailed dissection of the inner ear canal.
Okay.
But it's just
Wow.
not, it's not something that's standardly done.
Okay,
I'm
Joe,
fascinated by this element.
is that something, the burst eardrums, is that something that could happen post-mortem?
No,
Okay.
no,
So,
it requires pressure in order for it to happen. It's well, it's anybody that's ever flown. You
mhm.
know, I
Yeah.
have terrible pain in my ears when I fly, and just got off a plane yesterday. I was acutely reminded of that. Um, People that fly we, you know, we've recently had this case of this NASCAR fellow that forgive me, I can't remember his
in
name.
Charlotte a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, that had passed on,
Mhm.
and they were talking about the number of G's he would pull, right?
Right.
Well, he apparently has been diagnosed with pneumonia. I don't know,
Right.
relative to head congestion. Did you know that pilots, Air Force has protocol for this? Like, if you're a fighter pilot, you can't. Well, you don't have to be a fighter pilot. Any kind of pilot, you can't fly with like head cold. All right,
Oh,
because
wow.
the pressure that builds up. And there are cases where fighter pilots have burst their eardrums. A lot of that is because, that's why they wear a G suit, right? So
Right.
that they can keep the blood flowing and that sort of thing. Well, and to keep the blood to the brain is a huge deal for them, right? So you take that data and you apply it to this flow through here, and it's blocked, being compressed down on like this.
Right.
It ain't going nowhere. So that liquid, which is very viscous, blood is very viscous, thick, it's going to seek that weakest point, okay? And for whatever reason, contained within the eardrums, all right, that pressure built up in there and they burst. Now, I'm going to be very fascinated to see, I think, the diagnosis and what it's going to look like, because they'll have they'll have imagery from the autopsy.
Right.
That's going to demonstrate this. And that's going to be, Dave, I cannot tell our friends out here how impactful this is going to be. Because if you see a gunshot wound in court, all right, and you see, okay, well, they've got a hole in their liver, all right, and this caused their death as a result of them bleeding out.
Yeah.
Just imagine when they take this child's eardrums and they've taken them out and they've got them on a dissecting board with an arrow pointing to it, and they say, her eardrums burst because of so much pressure.
And it's going to come up, Joe, because what we do know and coming up, what happened aboard that ship that's going to show up in court is going to shock you. But the defense actually is already grilling the FBI over, did you find DNA on this, what caused, the asphyxiation? Did you find any DNA in there? Did you look for any? And can you determine if the person who deposited DNA on or in Anna's body was the same person that left DNA on her neck? I mean, they're going that far with this to try to tie the two together. And I'm going to tell you, it's like a magician, Joe. Hey, watch this hand. Look over here and don't pay attention to this one. But here's the deal, Joe. We know for a fact, and I've said this twice before, this will be 3 times this show. We know for a fact Anna Kepner left dinner with her family saying she didn't feel well. She went back to the cabin that she was sharing with her stepbrother, Timothy Hudson. Now, they arrived close together in terms of time.
Yes.
Anna Kepner never left the room again. Timothy Hudson left several times. Anna Kepner did not. She went into that room. She died in that room. And her body was found in that room. So anything else that goes on is a mind game, okay? But it's going to have to be answered. And Joe, that's why I was asking you about the arm bar and strangulation and all those different things, because I'm trying to figure out, where is the defense headed with these preliminary questions that are popping up in the trial in the transcripts coming from court hearings? Because what does it matter? I mean, I'm not trying to dismiss the death of a child, of a teen, at all. I'm just trying to figure out, we know she didn't come out. We know who went in. I mean, I know that's all circumstantial, but are we not allowed to use our brain just a little bit?
Yeah, and this is important because the idea is you have to eliminate. And now, we've got another person that has entered onto the stage, have we not? Because there has been found deposition that they found of an unidentified subject. And Dave, I think this individual has been at least alluded to in this report that was dumped, this data dump that I mentioned earlier, right, as a teen minor, correct? Is that accurate?
Another minor teen on the cruise ship that after Anna Kepner's death, the FBI sought out DNA from this unnamed minor male aboard the cruise ship.
Yeah. And that too is going to be the tail of the tape, because it's very important. We can draw any number of conclusions, I think. But again, as we always say here on Body Bags, the science will always be the tail of the tape. Hey friends, for those of you that cruise or go on cruises, because there's a whole group of you that do, I know. Have you ever been fascinated? I know I am, by the size of a cruise ship. And you're thinking, how in the world can this many people fit into this thing and it's not going to sink? It's a floating city, you know? It's not necessarily my thing, okay? Because I want someplace to run to. There ain't no place to run to, dude. And I don't like to be in small spaces. But, you know, Dave, the thing about a cruise is that it's a small city. Like I said, it's very congested. You have contact with a lot of people on this thing. And now you've got Anna, who has been murdered. Well, on every deck of that ship, there's a potential suspect.
Oh yeah.
You have to eliminate them, man. You have to eliminate them.
You know, again, referencing CrimeCon because we were just there. But a lot of folks were asking about the crime cruise and things like that. And I'm going to tell you, I can't. I cannot make myself get on. It's tough enough for me to fly. Okay. But the idea of being in a small city out on the ocean that I can't leave when I want. Oh, yeah. I can't do it. So just saying. Now the mystery or the big explosion of interest. Okay. I want to go to the New York Post for just a second, Joe, because I want to be very careful how we phrase this.
Sure.
Understand that Joe and I are both parents and grandparents. And, every time we do a story, it's coming from that perspective. The New York Post reporting, federal investigators have obtained a DNA sample from a mystery juvenile male who allegedly had sex with 18-year-old Anna Kepner aboard the cruise ship. Now, that's part of, as you mentioned, the document dump, okay, the info dump. And the FBI had to go and request a DNA sample from this mystery person. Yeah. And this mystery person had to be eliminated somehow before the arrest of stepbrother Timothy Hudson. See, remember we were kind of wondering, why are they waiting? They've got info. What could they possibly be waiting for? They were waiting for the results of the DNA to come back from
I think
the
they were.
male.
I guess my big question, Dave, with this unidentified minor subject, right? How did they get to that male subject? Well, one of the ways I think they got through to that male subject, to remember what you had said just a few moments ago about videography. Anna going in and stepbrother and her not reemerging and stepbrother coming in and out. Dave, these things have cameras all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
So we've got a limited number. If there was some level of intimate contact between this unidentified, you got to go somewhere, right? Yeah. So what other videography do they have that ties this unknown subject back to Anna? Because you have to have something to go on. You can do I guess you could say you could do it in reverse, and if you had an unidentified DNA sample off of somebody, Are you going to use familial DNA to try to trace it back to some minor kid?
Hey, Joe, let me stop you for just a second because we do know we got surveillance cameras everywhere, key card swipes and everything else to identify when somebody is entering a room and leaving a
Yeah.
room. But I want to ask you about the rape kit that was done on Anna Kepner because they did a rape kit on the boat, apparently. And then they ship the rape kit to Quantico. So the FBI performed the rape kit. And the lab compared the DNA, and I'm getting this right from my info here because I want to be very clear.
Sure.
The lab compared the DNA from the rape kit with DNA from Anna's stepbrother, Timothy Hudson, as well as one other male.
Yes.
The mystery male did not match the DNA. He has never been accused, charged, or named as a suspect in any crime related to Anna's death. And this mystery DNA that was found, they identified all of that and then arrested Timothy Hudson, the stepbrother. So I wanted to make sure we were clear on how they eliminated every possible, even though you've got surveillance footage showing going into the room, one coming out and the other never coming out alive,
Gotcha.
Even though they've got this hardcore DNA evidence that they performed. Now, Joe, you've talked about doing a rape kit.
Yes.
And when you have a situation like we have here, where you have you've got a teenager on a boat, on a cruise, on a family vacation, and now you're having to perform all of this, including you've got to figure out what happened.
Yes.
Where does it start? How do you, as the Emmy, or who does all that work, and where does it happen? Because we got the FBI sending stuff to Quantico, and we got,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and so I'm fascinated by this idea that a rape kit was performed on board, and I really wonder, where was it performed? In the sense of in the room, in the medical area, at on board the ship, the clinic. They all have clinics on them. I'm wondering where this was done, and I'm wondering about the qualifications of the individual that took the rape kit, because you have to have a certain understanding of how to perform one of these. So did they actually have someone there that was certified in order to do this? Because when we say rape kit, Dave, there's more to it than merely doing swabs. We do hair pluckings. We do hair combings. We use fine-tooth comb to comb through pubic hair. We pluck hair samples. There's a number of things. We do nail scrapings, and I know sometimes those things are connected and sometimes they're not. But it's fascinating that if they did it on board, who did it? Now, I think it'll be okay as long as the chain is not broken. Chain of custody, that is.
Right.
How was it secured once you took these samples? And then how did you, when I say secured, okay, just follow me here. Let's say they're out at sea, okay? You take a rape kit, and do you have 24/7 surveillance on the area where that rape kit is going to be stored? Because guess what happens at the ME's office if we do a rape kit? We have limited access areas that are designated and are actually, it's part of your certification, accreditation, that you secure something. And that could be a problem. I want to know how it was secured, who maintained that security throughout that period of time. I'm not saying, just understand, I'm thinking from the perspective of what the defense is going to try to do with this. All right. They're going to try to shoot holes in this.
Right.
Okay. Most of the time, human remains are taken obviously to the ME's office, and qualified people do the post-mortem rape kit. Okay. This is not an anti-mortem rape kit. It's completely different. And we maintain chain of custody. There is like this huge litany of signatures that's involved. You've got barcodes where this thing is tracked. So accountability, Dave, is going to be the watchword in this particular case. How is that kit secured all along the way? It's saying that this thing is collected on board the ship. I can't imagine that someone sat with this thing in their lap, and I'm being facetious here.
Yeah.
And they went all the way up to, Virginia and put in a Newport News, and an FBI guy, came out, took it from the guy on the ship and went to Quantico with it. That's not, that didn't happen. So how do you guarantee a ship with a bunch of civilians on it? Because I got to tell you, the people that work as security on ships are not forensics people. They're not. We've talked about this in the beginning with this case about security of scene. So I need this explained more for me to try to understand it. I'm not saying anything was done wrong, but if I'm asking that question, there are people that are a lot brighter than I that will be asking this question. So, and then once you've collected the sample at sea, you've altered the body before the body makes it to the ME's office, because the body is not, in order. I'm going to be very blunt here, Dave. Okay. I don't know if she had, when found, any clothing associated with her. I don't know if she was completely nude. I know she was wrapped.
Right.
Okay. Dave, there are many cases that I've worked over the years where I've had bodies that were wrapped up, and guess what I did not do with that body at the scene?
Unwrap it.
I didn't unwrap it. I secured it in a body bag. We took it directly to the morgue where the body would be processed thoroughly, because those wrappings in and of themselves, the blankets, are going to contain valuable information. So I'm having kind of a moment right here, forgive me, as I'm thinking about this and I'm hearing about the way that this was potentially handled. I want to know what their SOP is on board of that ship. I want to know what protocols were in place. I want to know who supervised a rape kit. Where did they get a rape kit from? Did they put into port somewhere? An FBI guy came onto this vessel, said, I will have, control over the body the entire time because the body is the biggest piece of evidence. And if that's the case, then why not secure the body until you get the body to Miami-Dade? You have the ME standing by. So, and then you remove the body by qualified people that can process the body for evidence. This is a big issue. This is a significant issue as they move forward with this case, Brother Dave.
I do think that the FBI is going to be able to answer all the questions that you laid out. As this case moves forward, there are going to be plenty of things brought up, as we've already seen questions about, DNA and what can you prove from the mechanical asphyxiation and the condition of her body. And again, we are dealing with an 18-year-old senior in high school on a cruise with her family who doesn't survive, and her stepbrother accused in her murder. So it's going to be really important to prove every step along the way.
Boy,
Joe.
You're not kidding. You're not kidding. Just thinking about this case, the delicate nature of what we're talking about, because if you're going to start throwing out this idea that DNA is in fact potentially the linchpin in this case, you better be ready to defend it, because defense practitioners out there everywhere know how delicate DNA is. And here's something else that they know about. They know about chain of custody. Ain't nothing new under the sun, my friends. And the tale will be told, and I guarantee you, questions will be asked. I just hope that the prosecution is prepared to answer them. I'm Joseph Scott Morgan, and this is Body Bag.